It's never been easier to imagine better. That's the good news. To create, to improve some aspect of the world, make it work better, sound better, look better, persuade better, learn better, even think better. Think of the tools we now have, all the world's knowledge at your fingertips. You can read the greatest literature, translate it if you don't know the language, explained if you don't get the obscure references. You can explore all the world's great art. You can even catch the little Easter eggs you missed. Want to know how Andrew Wiles cracked Fermat's last theorem? AI can explain it to you. There's a world of learning and creativity right here at your fingertips. And that's just the beginning. We now have the tools to meet people who share our interests, no matter how obscure, to communicate our ideas, to broadcast them to the world. But as always, there's a snake in the garden. So here's the bad news. It's never been easier to imagine better. And imagination isn't just private anymore. Social media, the internet, and modern media prey on it. They specialize in making it easy to picture yourself with better. Your friends from high school living their best life as documented by carefully curated posts on their feed. Influencers and gurus promising a better body, a better income, a better partner, a better life. Just buy their course, join their mastermind, follow their coaching. There's even one guru who promises that if you follow his advice, you'll never die. We'll get to him in a future video. And what happens? You look at your own life, your own partner, your own home. No matter what you have, no matter how good it really is, you appreciate it less because the endless scroll reminds you that there's always something better. In this new world of opportunity and danger, where do we turn for clarity? Where do we find answers to guide us through the chaos? I'll tell you where. It's in the Torah, God's eternal gift of wisdom to mankind. The good news is that it gives us the answers we need right at the beginning. Its very first story about the very first people contains the insight that can lead us safely past the danger of finding ourselves unhappy amongst abundance and plenty. The story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden needs no introduction. In fact, it's a story so familiar that we think we know it. We think we understand it, but we don't bother to look beneath the surface to that place where we can find the answer to one of the most important questions we can ever ask. What are you? Because it's the answer to this question that can either guide us on the right path or leave us hopelessly lost. Naysayers want you to ignore the story, and they'll call you foolish for taking it seriously, whether it's feminists working themselves into a fury because Eve bears some of the blame for humanity's downfall, or Bill Maher sneering about talking snakes. There's always something to nitpick. But if you want to see the world champions of missing the point, look no further than the so-called Four Horsemen, a group of celebrity atheists who, after 9/11, blamed the world's problems on religion itself, using the tragedy to spread their bleak worldview.
But the other thing is that, never mind about the academic theologians, bishops and vicars, who will attack us for taking scriptures, or for accusing people of taking scriptures literally. And of course we don't believe the book of Genesis literally. And yet they do preach about what Adam and Eve did, as though they did exist, as though they're somehow, it's a sort of license to talk about things which they know, and anybody of any sophistication knows, is fiction. And yet,
what explains their hostility? Literalism can't explain it. They're just too upset, too obsessed for that to be the issue. I think part of what's bothering them is this. Even back in 2007, when that video was recorded, it had never been easier to imagine better. I mean, sure, these are men who made their living off their atheism and they needed content, but even still, these were rich, respected men who had more than most could dream of. Yet still, for most of them, it seems so easy to imagine better. all of it misses the point entirely. And I think it misses the point because this story gives us an uncomfortable answer to a fundamental question. And the story of the garden doesn't let us wriggle out of answering the most fundamental question of all. So, if you want to stop missing the point already, then believe the story with me for just a moment. I promise you won't lose any precious IQ points for doing so. So, what's this uncomfortable question? It's this: what are you? It's the first question the Torah addresses about humanity, because without knowing exactly what you are, how can you recognize your skills, abilities, vulnerabilities, and limitations? And without that, how can you shape your expectations of yourself, of humanity, and of the world itself? By any measure, Adam's first day was a great one. He was placed in a world with everything he could ever want and need lying before him. It had been a great day with a promise of more to come. When the Garden of Eden experienced a male loneliness epidemic, God gave him Eve. There was no woman better than Eve. Well, obviously, there was no woman other than Eve, but more than that, the Talmud tells us of her surpassing beauty, both physical and spiritual. Their wedding could not have been improved upon. God himself adorned the bride in jewels, braided her hair, took her by the hand, and brought her to Adam beneath a bejeweled wedding canopy. Adam's groomsman was God himself. It was a wedding so perfect that, to this day, a Jewish bride and groom are reminded of that first union, so they might taste a hint of that joy in their own celebration. Adam wasn't given everything. He was given everything except for one thing: the fruit of one tree in the midst of the garden. That sounds like a pretty darn good deal to me. But there was a problem, a serious problem. Right about now, you might be expecting me to mention that serpent, the one that tempted Eve. But you'd be wrong. That's not the problem I'm talking about now. The problem was an attitude exemplified by one of the most evil men to appear in the whole of Tanakh, Haman. His name appears right here in the beginning of the book of Genesis. How did that happen? We'll get back to that soon. If you're familiar with the Tanakh, you might be asking, Haman, isn't he from ancient Persia, thousands of years after the Garden of Eden? And you'd be right. So what's going on? Let me give you a few details about the story of Haman, and I think you'll see how it all fits together to reveal the dark secrets that lie just beneath the surface, way back in Eden. Haman had started out as a menial servant in the palace of Ahasuerus, a king who ruled the entire known world. Powerful as he might be, no man can run a kingdom on his own. He needs advisors, administrators, helpers. Ahasuerus saw potential in that lowly servant: drive, determination, administrative skills, whatever. He elevated Haman to the most powerful minister in all of Persia. By any measure, Haman had had a great day, with promise of more to come. Rather than drudgery, Haman was granted wealth and power beyond anybody's ability to believe. Everything he could possibly desire was his for the taking. As he walked around the city, every man would bow low before him. Every man but one. One Jew named Mordecai refused to bow. Mordecai the Jew would bow only to God. It became obvious to Haman he did not have everything. To a man like Haman, not having everything was no better than not having anything. He said to his wife, "Yet all this means nothing to me every time I see that Jew Mordecai sitting at the palace gate." And so, Haman hatched a plot to destroy the Jewish people. But that's a story for another time. Because we have an appointment back in the garden to see where Haman's awful influence was present, even in that wonderful place. Let's pick up the story where God asks Adam, "Did you eat of the tree from which I had forbidden you to eat?" Buried in that accusing question is Haman. Hamin ha'etz. The Hebrew of the Torah has no vowels, so Hamin ha'etz and Haman are written exactly alike. The Talmud tells us that this correspondence is no accident. Now we're equipped to see what was really going on. God was asking Adam to admit something deep and dark about himself, to admit that the very worst of humanity lurked within his soul, that almost everything, even everything but one, well, that just wasn't good enough. It's a terrible admission. God had him dead to rights. So what did Adam do? He chickened out. Instead of replying, "There is no excuse," he shifted the blame and allowed himself to utter the single most cowardly, ungrateful line in the entire history of humanity. "The woman you put at my side, she gave me of the tree and I ate." He just couldn't admit what he didn't want to be true about himself, about ourselves, about the creature that he was, the creature that we all are. But the knowledge that he denied is crucial. Anchored by that knowledge, we can stay true to our purpose and give ourselves the best chance of a life of fulfillment, of satisfaction, of real accomplishment, and of connection to what has come before us and to the future that is yet to come. Cut that anchor and we drift. We expose ourselves to an ever-growing army of serpents, each vying for our attention with the false and seductive image of better. If you like this video and want more inspiring content, click like and subscribe to my channel. And tell me in the comments, has the promise of better ever distracted you from what could have or should have made you happy?